So first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Tonight is a very timely webinar. It's been 2 months since the forming of the government and a little bit over the 60-day honeymoon period. And I want to
what
thank,
a honeymoon.
Yeah, quite a honeymoon it's been.
What a honeymoon.
Yeah. Hopefully it will we're going to get to the better part soon. But I do want to thank our hosts and Alex for being with us. He's on his way to America and made it priority from the airport to be taking this call just to show how important it is. So I want to thank Alex and JNS for being fantastic partners. And also our partners, the American Zionist Movement. I know that this discussion is important to Zionists around the world. It's important, frankly, to those in Israel. And it's important for all of us to hear words of how this government, and more importantly, how we can make sure that that the Jewish people can reclaim a greater, better sense of unity as we face some challenging times. So just as the ground is literally shaking in Israel, there's also a rupture taking place along the fault lines of the long-term bond between global Jewry and the Jewish homeland. It's time for us to renew this covenant, renew the social contract between global Jewry and the state of Israel. We at Kol Yisrael, as a voice, a centrist voice in the Zionist movement, made up of the World Confederation of United Zionists, and also made up with Tnuat HaNoar Tzioni from around the world, put a focus on engaging the next generation of our youth movements, focused on connecting and repairing the relationship between global Jewry and Israel, and most importantly, how we can renew and revitalize a vision of Zionism to make it relevant for the modern era. This conversation is one that is critical for us to hear from you. I really don't want to have too much side conversations. And what we're going to do is Alex is going to lead a discussion, a focused conversation. I just ask that Minister Chikli and Meirav Ben-Ari, I want to thank you both for taking the time tonight.
Yeah, where is Meirav?
Meirav is a little bit, there we go, a little bit clear with the lighting. So if you can stay closer to the screen,
Meirav, if you can make yourself a little bit lighter.
יותר קרובה לזה שיהיה פחות בדיוק. So be helpful.
Meirav, why are you sitting in the dark, Meirav?
In the dark, yeah.
We need you in the light, Meirav. Come into the light. And so what I would ask is Alex will lead the discussion back and forth, and if we can, just let's have this as respectful as possible as we delve into the questions about specifically not only what does this government, how does it view its mutual responsibility to the Jewish people? How does it review in light of growing anti-Semitism, in light of Jewish disconnect around the world? How does it view its role? And then the opposition, how does it view restoring back the covenant between the global Jewry and Israel? And so with that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time tonight and turn it to you, Alex, to lead the discussion.
Thank you so much, David. And I recommend that everybody take a look at the incredible activities of Kol Israel. They are doing many wonderful things to try to bring closer the relationship between Israelis and Jews living in the diaspora. And it's one of the big challenges that we have today is actually strengthening the bonds of Am Yisrael, no matter where Jewish people live. So I want to thank Amichai Chikli, who is the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, a member of the Likud party, and Meirav Ben-Ari, who is a member of the Yesh Atid party.
Like a lion.
Correct. Who's a member of the Ben-Ari, who's a member of the Yesh Atid party. Thank you both for joining. I just want to say that my name's Alex Trayman. I should have said that first. I'm the CEO, Jerusalem Bureau Chief of JNS, which I highly recommend as a source of high quality news and analysis on what's going on today in the state of Israel and the Jewish world. And so happy to bring both member of the coalition and member of the opposition together. Now, just to summarize where we are, as David said, 60 days after the forming of a government, we had for many years, Prime Minister Netanyahu became the longest seated prime minister in Israeli history. And then he was out. Yesh Atid and and Yair Lapid, together with Naftali Bennett, formed a change coalition, which lasted for just over a year. And then we went into a fifth election, and maybe defying all the odds, Netanyahu is back in the seat of power in Israel. Not only is he in government, but he has actually the furthest right-wing coalition that he's had in all the years that he's been the prime minister. And by all accounts, 60 days in, it doesn't necessarily look like it's going as well as the coalition thought it would when they started. And in particular, we are seeing hundreds of thousands of people in the streets in Israel, and not just Israelis, but people around the world protesting the planned judicial reforms that are being proposed by the coalition, in particular by Justice Minister Yariv Levin. Minister Chikli, Amichai, as the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, it's perhaps more than anybody, it's your job to explain the government and its policies to the members of the diaspora. Can you tell me what that challenge has been like, and what are you telling people about what's going on today?
Yes, basically every other day, sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day, many Zoom calls with the diaspora and many meetings with the groups that are coming to the state of Israel. We're trying to minimize the damage that the opposition is doing. And not just the opposition, but also the opposition that is outside of the opposition. We have Ehud Barak, Tzipi Livni, calling for a rebellion against the government, saying that Israel is not going to be a democracy anymore. We are a dictatorship now. And all these slogans that create panic in the public in Israel and also abroad. But in order to have a serious discussion, let me open with a question. Let's take Switzerland. The Supreme Court in Switzerland cannot cancel laws of the parliament. In Switzerland, the Supreme Court judges are being elected by the parliament. Switzerland is a dictatorship? I don't think so. I think that Switzerland is a democracy. And in many states all across the Western world, it's very common that the Supreme Court is being elected by the government, it's being elected by the parliament. There's nothing there. The rare situation is here in Israel. Here in Israel, the Supreme Court, because of the constitutional revolution that was led by Aaron Barak, is possessing endless power. Just to give you an example, a year ago, the former government, not the current government, Shasha Bitton, the Ministry of Education, said that she refused to give the Israel Award that we are giving in the Independence Day to Professor Goldreich, because he's a supporter of the BDS movement and is calling for boycotting the Israeli academics. So some organization, I don't recall exactly the name of the organization, probably Atnua Leichut HaShilton, went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court forced Shasha Bitton to give Professor Goldreich, a BDS supporter, the award. Does that make sense? I think it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. The Chief of Staff, Aviv Kochavi, was forced to bring back an officer from the military police because the Supreme Court thought that the procedure that was being held in order to dismiss this officer was not sufficient, was not good enough. Now, maybe they are right, but it's also okay that the Chief of Staff will do mistakes. I don't want the Supreme Court to be above the Chief of Staff. And a recent example, Friday, Itamar Ben-Gvir. I know that he's a very, his PR are kacha kacha. And you can like him, you can dislike him. As we all know his background, and yes, there's very problematic events in his background. It's true. No one is saying it's not true, but he made a process. He went to the public and he was elected. And he wasn't just elected, he has quite significant power in this election. And now is the ministry who is responsible for the police, for inner security affairs. And by the law, he can dismiss senior police commanders. For instance, and he asked to not to dismiss from the police, but to shift the commander of the center of Israel in the police, because he was not fulfilling the mission. He asked him to maintain public order, and we have every other day demonstrations are fine, but I'm speaking about blocking a highway. Now I can imagine, yes, based on what I've seen in the US, what will happen to I don't know, 100 protesters that are standing in the middle of a highway in America. It will take US police, I believe, around 5 minutes to make sure that the highway is clear. That's public order. And so here, the legal advisor, after Itamar Ben-Gvir asked that this commander will be removed, she said, no, you cannot do it. And so basically, the chief of staff of the police currently is the legal advisor, Gali Baharav Mayara. Does that make sense? That's the way it is in America. The legal advisor is obeying a minister what to do and what not to do. So, and these are just small examples, and there's also far more deep and serious issues. If you want to move on to other issues, we can go back to it.
I think we do need to move the conversation because there's a short amount of time, and so I don't want to get into necessarily what are all the oppositions to all of the things that that Minister Chikli mentioned, but Meirav, can you tell me if you see as a member of the opposition, and the opposition has been vehemently opposed to all the judicial reforms, is there, was not too long ago even that Yair Lapid called for at least some version of judicial reform. Is there some compromise that can be reached between the coalition and the opposition in order to perhaps make the Supreme Court more representative body of the public of Israel, and to restore calm in the streets and restore also confidence to those looking at Israel from abroad?
So hello everyone, and thank you for having me. Yes, of course, we in the opposition, we believe that it has to be a big reform. Yair Lapid talked about it, Gideon Sa'ar, Benny Gantz, many of the leaders of the opposition speaking about this huge reform, this important reform that should be on a justical system. But this is not the way to do a big reform. This is not the way to do change. If you want to do a change, you speak with the other side. You don't do this legislation in the Knesset every day of the week, from Sunday to Thursday. I just want to mention to the people that watch us that the Knesset usually work from Monday to Wednesday for 3 days, but Simcha Rotman break every rule that the Knesset has. And even though if you just go to this committee, and I'm not recommending you to go to this committee because it's like an awful situation to be in the opposition and always make that, they shut your mouth and don't give you the opportunity to speak about what's so important for the people here in Israel. So unfortunately, Simcha Rotman took the leads even more than Yariv Levin, although Yariv Levin, you have to give him the credit because this is the master for all this plan. But Simcha Rotman took it very far and tried to do everything against the situation. Hopefully, I really hope that the president, Yitzhak Herzog, that is very involved in the situation, will have the opportunity to do this reform together. Unfortunately, I don't see Simcha Rothman and Yariv Levin give him the opportunity to lead. I just want to, because the Chikli spoke about two things. First, he spoke about Switzerland. It's a very awful example, because Switzerland, the people are involved. The people in Switzerland, they vote 3-4 times a year for almost every decision. The people vote, and it's a very bad example. I love Chikli, is my friend, but Switzerland, it's not even close to even other country in Europe, because the people voting, and they voting 50 times a year. So if you ask now today, the people here in Israel, maybe you will get another, maybe they, if you ask people in Israel, do you want to do reform? They will tell you that they want to do reform. Do you want to do it this way? They will tell you for sure, not this way, not like Simcha Rothman and Yariv Levin. So Switzerland is very, very bad example to Israel, and they are not, they don't like, for not just to Israel, to other countries in Europe.
Meirav, I'd like to ask you actually another question. You're pointing out that the government has launched a campaign that is actually proving to be not very effective in convincing many people around the world that this is the way to do judicial reform. And we'll see what winds up happening if a compromise is made. At the same time, the opposition has launched an incredible campaign against judicial reform, and is using slogans that Israel is becoming anti-democratic, that it's becoming a dictatorship and a fascist state. And, Israel's been fighting a war for its legitimacy for the last 20 years or more, maybe even since the founding of the state. But we've, especially in the era of social media, is fighting a terrible battle for its legitimacy. And do you see any dangers in the campaign of the opposition against judicial reform to defame Israel in such a way that it might not be repairable, even if judicial reform doesn't go through?
You don't need the opposition to do, they didn't even find one that understands economic and that is in favor of the reform. The shekel, the borsa, the everything, even our relationship with the U.S. Seeing the Minister of Treasury, Bezalel Smotrich, going to the U.S. and not even have the opportunity to see or meet one of the American government. This is not the Yair Lapid work. This is their work. First, when you speak about Hawara, to delete the Palestinian village. And second, when he's part of this reform. We don't recommend the US government who to meet. They can meet everyone. But you can see for yourself, see the Emirates. You think that we are influencing Ben Zayed not to do the agreement with the military force here in Israel? It's not in our hand. You think that the shekel and the economic are listening to Yair Lapid, and I can tell you even think about the demonstration. People on demonstration, if Yair Lapid will be part of but if not, when I'm taking my child to demonstrate, I'm going with the people. I don't even speak. They don't even give us the opportunity to speak in Tel Aviv. Sometimes in the small cities like Netanya or other small cities, you have the opportunity to speak, but they don't need us. People here in Israel afraid. They see our neighbors. They see Lebanon that was so rich, was the Paris of the Middle East, And first the elite left. And first they left and they took the money. And I want to tell you something. I'm not afraid of the people that shouting about the demonstration, because they are shouting and you will hear them. I'm afraid of the small inventor, the one that take the money out from the country. They don't listen to Lapid. They see the reforms. I see my friend. I can give you an example. I have a very good friend. She was many years in the army, and her husband is a foreign. He's from Italy. They live here for the last 10 years, and every suggestion for relocation, they always was against it. And now they got the opportunity to relocate, and they decided to leave. And this is very, very sad. And listen, and I'm in a very position because I'm now trying to convince her to stay. Me, that I'm against this reform, but I love my country and I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want that our Ministry of Treasury will go to the state and no one will meet him because it's hurting my country. But and I don't say that we don't need a reform, but there is a way to change all this legal system.
Okay,
and I always try to speak with Chikli because I know he can understand me, but it's a very hard
Amichai,
situation.
Yes.
What we've seen, something potentially new in the relationship
I just wanted to
between...
respond, if I can, to Meirav before we're moving forward. Yes, there is a way to do the reform, and the way is the parliament. The way is the Knesset. Yes, there is a way to ask the people what they want to do. The way is election. Yes, there can be changes in the authority of legal advisor. Yes, there can be changes in how we choose judges. And I think that the drama regarding this judicial reform is way, way, way exaggerated. It's really, it's an irrational debate. And when you look at the things more rationally, I think eventually the reason why the opposition is jumping on tables like in Lebanon is because they know that unfortunately the Supreme Court is leaning very to the progressive approach, and we want to have a more balanced Supreme Court. We want to have a more moderate Supreme Court, less activist, and I think it's absolutely legitimate.
At the same time, the way that the coalition has been governing, if they'll have this type of reaction to all the nationalist policies, it's almost an untenable situation if this will continue. What
we cannot control the opposition.
Well, how do you? Isn't it the responsibility of the government to figure out how to bring the tensions down, and how do you bring the tensions down?
So I think that if we want to bring the tension down, first of all, we need responsible leadership. Now, the problem is not just Yair Lapid, who is doing amazing damage to the state of Israel with his statements that this is a disaster and that's the end of democracy. You are a former prime minister. You need to think before you speak. And it's not just Yair Lapid, but it also all these failed politicians like Tzipi Livni, Ehud Barak, Boogie Yalon, and if you draw a line between Ehud Barak, Boogie, Yair Golan, they all were trying to get elected to the Knesset, and they all did not cross the threshold. Boogie did not cross the threshold. Yair Golan did not cross the threshold. They all want to go back to politics, and they are doing horrible things in order to be relevant once again. And it's a tragedy. So I think that, yes, we are calling for the opposition leaders to discuss every day. We're saying we're not going to stop because we're not doing anything illegal. We're not a terror organization. We're just proceeding with the reform. You want to come, you want to discuss, let's do it. Come, let's discuss. I believe also that if they will come and they will discuss, we can pose the legislation. Now, by the way, people are not aware of the fact that there are endless discussions behind the scenes, endless discussions in order to bring a compromise and to have a softer reform at the end. And that also needs to be, you should know it.
One of the things that makes potentially this campaign different than previous campaigns, and also the relationship between Israelis and Americans, different than the relationship in the past, is that American Jewish leaders in particular have been extraordinarily vocal in their protest of the judicial reforms. And I want to ask you, as the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, someone who's now getting to learn a lot about the nature of the American Jewish communal leadership structure, what voice does the American Jewish leadership have in influencing Israeli policies? What voice should they have? And how do you set up a relationship where you have a mutual respect both ways?
So I think that the fact that I'm spending really endless time in listening, in bringing the voice of leaders of Jewish communities abroad to the government and explaining the government the variety of opinion that I hear, if it's in the IAC conference or a Zoom call or letters that are being sent. And also I'm trying to learn from the criticism. For instance, I've learned quite fast that the thing that worried the most of the leaders that I have discussions with was the overruling of the Supreme Court decision with 61 Knesset members only. That was like the main criticism. And I brought it over to the government and to the Prime Minister and told him about what are the voices that I'm hearing. They also send letters directly to the public letters, etc. And so that's the way that we discuss. And I think that's my role.
Meirav, the relationship between Israel and especially American Jewry in particular is changing as the state of Israel becomes stronger, right? It used to be that that the state of Israel really relied tremendously on the support of the state of Israel, of American Jewry rather, to really help bolster the states, to help build it, to help fund the development of the infrastructure. And today we're seeing that the state of Israel is becoming much stronger than it was, and maybe parallel in the relationship. Certainly there's more Jews living in the state of Israel today than there are Jews living in the United States even. So what should the relationship be between Jews in Israel and Jews in America in this new state of affairs where the state of Israel is potentially the stronger of the two communities?
I think that you're flattering us because although there's more Jewish here in Israel, it's not the same, because I know Israel very well, and without the diaspora, without the Jews in the US and also, in South Africa and in Europe, I don't see the existence of people here in Israel. We are very much reliable in the Jewish, it's not just in welfare and education and projects that you are doing together, and we're doing together everything, even the shelters in Sderot, when they build the shelters for protecting the people in Sderot, it's always joint venture. It's not just education. Okay, we are going to build a youth of risk hostel together with with one foundation it's not just it. I think the security people here in Israel are very much reliable in this powerful leadership of Jewish in the diaspora, and especially in the US. IPAC, see everything that we are doing here in Israel, we are very much reliable in our relationship with you guys. It's not just, to say that we are in the same parallel. Of course, this is the Jewish state. Of course, we want you here all, but in these times, and especially in this awful time, I think in Israel now, it's very, very bad time for me. And in one hand, I'm very proud that I'm part of the opposition. I don't know if you know, I am part of the Israeli Knesset from 2015. For 5 years and a half, I was part of the coalition. I was very proud when I was with Kachlon and Kulanu from 2015 to 2019, and with Bennett Lapid government in 2021. And I'm very, very proud to be part of the opposition in those awful days that Israel is just going through. The people here, the citizens, my friends, my family, people that I am very, very, they are very. I'm very attached to them, and I know that they're worried, they don't sleep at night, they really fear about the country. And now the same happened in the US, the same happened. Tomorrow Netanyahu is going to Berlin, okay? He was last week in Rome. The leadership of the Jewish organization in Rome spoke about the reform. I was with President Herzog in the EU Parliament, Europe Parliament, and we were sitting in the session with the president of the UE. And the first thing that she wanted to ask is what happened with your legal system. It's not, you have to, I know that Chikli is insistent about Boogie and Tzipi Livni. Not interesting, guys. It's not interesting. I don't care what they want, if there are any political initiative. It's not the issue. The issue here that you are changing, and you have to understand that in Israel there are 3 authorities, and the Knesset is very, very weak to everything that the government said. But in the other hand, if you want to do the same for the Supreme Court in Israel, seriously, we have a big problem here, and it is not about the leadership of Tzipi Livni and Ehud Barak. It's not interesting me. And now I know that people in the diaspora, tomorrow in Berlin, there's going to be demonstration. And you know, for me as a patriot, as a Zionist, someone who really loved their country, to see those demonstrations against our leaders abroad, it's a shame for us. I don't want that my leadership will go abroad and people from the US or from Berlin or from Europe will protest against my leaders. It's not about leadership. It's about what country we are leaving to our children. And once the Supreme Court will be, just last center, will be under the government, because the government will choose the judge and the government will decide which rule is better, which rule is, this is what's supposed to be. Yes, I'm in a I'm very worrying, and I have to, and it's really, I want to end with that although you are very flattering us, the Israel state, I don't know if she can even, can reach for her achievement without those bonds and without those relationship between you in the US and here in Israel.
Yes, certainly the relationship is very important. And we're seeing in the United States and also in Israel, and in fact, in the entire Western world, the polarization of politics and the gap between right and left getting much stronger. And in Israel, we see that the general population is becoming more and more conservative politically. And we're seeing that the American Jewish community is, especially younger members of the American Jewish community, are becoming more and more liberal. How do these political divides fit into the relationship between Israel and American Jewry, and how do you bridge the political gaps and repair the relationship and make it about something that's more than politics?
Okay, so first I do want to refer to Meirav, which is, as mentioned before, although abroad you think that we are about to, I don't know what to do to one another, but we are very, very close friends, and we did a lot of things together also in the Knesset, and we will do more things in the future, Be'ezrat Hashem. Now, we do have, first of all, about Tzipi Livni and Ehud Barak. Interesting, not interesting, they are in CNN, saying that Israel is no longer a democracy. And then you ask, oh, why those Jews in the diaspora are worried? Yes, they are worried because of the campaign, that Yair Lapid is one of the leaders of this campaign, and he is being acting in such an irresponsible way that's very disturbing. And also about the vikuach, okay? There is a vikuach l'shem shamayim here. There is a debate, a serious debate. And when Benny Gantz said a year ago, it's good that the judicial system will be superior on the parliament, he said it. And I think that's a very problematic statement. We need, like Montesquieu said, 3 authorities. And just like it's reading in the paper of the Federalist, and we believe that the balance between these, the balance was break. And that's why we need to create a change, and to bring the balance, to bring back the balance between the authorities. Because today there is no one that is superior, has the power of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court in Israel has endless power. Now, About polarization, yes, it's the same. It's social networks, and you have everything is on video. And when you go to the discussion with the committee of Simcha Rotman, everyone thinks about the video at the end and how can you get more likes. So maybe I'll jump on a table, I get more traffic, and that's just like the rest of the world. And I think it's unfortunate, but on the deeper sense, it all goes back to identity. And if we will have stronger Jewish education, Zionist education for young Jews who live abroad, and also here in Israel, we will have a mutual story. We will have mutual ground, and then we can have debates, and we can argue, and we will not agree, but we will have basic values, and we will have same story, same past, and also a commitment to have a brighter future for us as a nation. If not, if identity will continue to be weakening as time goes by, okay, so it's the relationship will be weak. And we are doing in the ministry, as a Minister of Diaspora, we've just finished a huge research on early Jewish education abroad, and we're not gonna sit and wait. We're gonna do whatever we can with the leadership abroad to bring to have stronger Jewish education.
What does that look like? What does that look like?
What does that look like? Okay. So, for instance, we've learned that there are several models. You have early childhood education, you have Jewish day schools, you have supplementary schools. Some models of supplementary schools are good. Some of them, like the Sunday schools, are not very successful. And we've found out, for instance, that the strategic part is the Jewish educator. The level of Jewish education, the Jewish education is not sufficient. Professionality in Hebrew, in Jewish history, Jewish knowledge. The salaries of Jewish teachers are very, very poor. And sometimes you can find someone who is a teacher and he goes to work in Starbucks as well in order to, so that he can finish the months. So we are working with many foundations to try and bring solutions and to help our fellow Jews abroad to have stronger Jewish education, Zionist education. And also we have serious challenges in Jewish education here in Israel, because you have also people in the left saying that Jewish education is like religious education. They do not separate between religious education and Jewish education. I'm not saying it's all the left, it's not, but some parts makes it difficult to bring Jewish education here in Israel as well.
Meirav, the state of Israel has been losing the Hasbara war, particularly in academic circles on the college campuses. You have people promoting BDS. If you were invited now to a college campus in the United States, how would you make the case for Israel? Even if, let's say, that judicial reform goes through. Mm-hmm. How do you make the case that Israel is still a moral, a decent, and a good country that's not deserving potentially of all the bad attention and criticism that it gets abroad?
So first, I don't need to come to college because I have like every week a group from the US, or I just met last week a group of advisor of senators and congressmen from the US Parliament. And 2 weeks ago, I think every week you have to understand that 50% or 40% of the MK in this situation is about diplomacy and building our nation and our state stronger. So yes, I have I think sometimes some conflict, but the thing that lead me all the time is I love my country, and I'm Zionist and I'm patriot, and I will do everything to protect her. That's why I'm demonstrating, and that's why when I'm meeting you or other groups, or I'm doing everything to fight BDS, to fight anti-Semitism, to understand that when you close a factory next to the Dead Sea or in Jerusalem, you take the Palestinian and the Jewish to their houses and don't bring them the opportunity to provide themselves, just money. And when you BDS and when you say that the factory in the Ma'ale Adumim, that it's next to Jerusalem, and you don't buy products from this factory, you sending Palestinian to their home because you don't. I'm now in Israel, give them the opportunity to get to have just money to provide to their families. So I'm fighting BDS every week. I'm doing everything to keep my country safe. But yes, sometimes it's a big conflict. I can tell you that in my last session with those advisor of, they asked me what we can do to help your country, and I say just keep being our friends, because we are the real democracy in the Middle East, the real democracy. I mean, if you ask Jordan, they have democracy, or Egypt, they have democracy, even Lebanon has democracy, but it's not like the real one. So sometimes I find myself in a conflict of interest, but the one that lead me all the time is that I love this country and don't want her to change. And I do everything to help in my power. And yes, but if there are people from abroad that they can influence, ministers here or even Netanyahu, that to come and do this reform together with talking in closed rooms, not in the committee in the Knesset, just leave the Knesset, go to small rooms, go to small debates with members of the Knesset, with members of even ministers like Chikli or even others, and try to sit together for 1 week, 2 weeks, and have a good and really important reform. So I can tell you that it's not matter whatever I will be, opposition or coalition. I know what's important, and I know that I want that my child will be here, will live here, that won't have to think of, I see my friends that they taking a foreign passport, that they're thinking about relocation. And as I told you in the beginning, I find myself convincing them. So I'm fighting BDS and I'm fighting for my country in my small, house with my friends and family that thinking about leaving the country, take the money out. And but in the other hand, if everyone that can influence this government to understand that people are here very worried, I'm doing everything in my power to do it. But I want to make sure and reassure you that Israel is much more important for me and for Chikli, and we need to leave Israel as a democratic, Jewish and democratic state, and I do everything that it will keep and stay like that.
Amichai, in the diaspora, we're seeing a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism, both soft anti-Semitism and also even violent anti-Semitism. Tell me, what types of conversations are you having with American Jewish leaders about the rising tide of anti-Semitism, and what are they asking you for as a minister in the government and the Minister of Diaspora Affairs to help them with?
Yes, so we need to understand that anti-Semitism it's not just about words, it's not just about legitimacy, it is really about the very existence of communities. And as we saw in smaller communities in Sweden, people were not going anymore to synagogues, were not going anymore to Jewish institutions, and therefore these communities stopped functioning. So now America is far, far bigger and it's a far more stronger community, but students, they don't want to be involved anymore. Not that they don't want to be involved, they are afraid to be identified with the state of Israel, with Judaism, with Zionism. And that's a real threat. So the Ministry of Diaspora is assisting these communities first with equipment for protection of the communities. We do it with the Jewish Agency and with the Israeli security forces. What we do also is we have all the department to combat BDS. We are now in a very dramatic shift in the way the ministry is built. We are building a research part, and then also a part that will be attacking the BDS and the Palestinian Authority that also is very, very involved in promoting anti-Semitism. Just an example, after the horrific attack in Neve Yaakov, where 7 innocent people were murdered outside of a synagogue, there were ceremonies and all across elementary schools, kindergartens in the Palestinian Authority, and it was all recorded. So we've created a report and we send it to all the ambassadors here in Israel to let them know what Palestinian education looks like. That's part of our work against the BDS.
Meirav, what are the diaspora leaders asking of you when you speak to them? What do they want from Israel?
You asked me about the diaspora leaders?
Yeah. Well, if you're meeting leaders from the diaspora.
I mean, it's you can't put them in, like everyone is the same. I mean, like, I think three weeks ago, we had a session in the Knesset with the leadership from the US that there are reforms and conservative, and they are completely different, but the ones I met 2 weeks ago. I met those rabbanim, the reforms and conservative, that I knew them before because I went to the US. I went to meet them there, and then we met here. And yes, they are very worried. Of course, if we are liberal and you see those government that they are ultra-Orthodox, that religious, without women, without LGBT, without, so it's not the issues about, speaking about the, with the Reform Rabbinate that live in the US, they went to the Kotel, the place that they can pray in the Kotel, and then there were a lot of issues the day after with the ultra-Orthodox people. I found a lot of people that worried about Israel. But in the other hand, I can also meet people like the advisors, so they don't really know Israel as the reform or the conservative. I can tell you that people are worried from the diaspora. I just saw we are talking now, and I got this message that, as I spoke to you before, as I told you before, that Netanyahu sent to the minister that they cannot go to the US because the situation with Bezalel, that no one met them. So we gave guidelines now that the ministers cannot go to the US before he will go. And as you probably know, Joe Biden didn't invite him yet. I can tell you that in Israel, and you can check me, every new prime minister in the 2 months from the time that is the new prime minister is coming to the US. He didn't get the invitation, and I can also mention you that he was supposed to go in January to Abu Dhabi, to the Emirates, and they also canceled it, and now they decided to invite him, maybe, not for sure, only after the Ramadan, because they don't want to be embarrassed in the Ramadan. You know that the Ramadan in Israel is very, very problematic month to the Muslim, Jews, everyone that live here together. So even the Emirates postpone his visiting. And yes, I don't want that my country will be in this situation, but they don't need Yair Lapid for this. They just understand that people here in Israel, they are ultra-Orthodox, you see Simcha Rothman is not even represented me or people here that they are living the center right or the center left. And yes, and to see my country like this, it's very wrong. If you ask me, it's very, very different. I can tell you that maybe 90% from the people I met from the diaspora, they are worried about Israel. And you're living in democratic and liberal states, so you know what we are afraid of. You have to understand that Israel doesn't have constitution. We don't have we don't have Senate and Congress. We don't have 2 houses. We don't have the veto rights of the president. We don't have nothing. The only thing that we have is the Supreme Court. So yes, we need to change the Supreme Court. We need to do the reforms, but we can't break, and we can't give the opportunity to the government to control all the 3 authorities. The Knesset now, as I told you, it's weak. it doesn't have any real representative. Most of the members of Knesset, they are new. They don't understand Knesset. So if you want to bring the Supreme Court to be like this, so yes, you have to be worried about it.
I know we have to wrap up pretty soon, and I just did want to see if I can bridge some of the gaps here, just for a moment. As someone born in the United States who decided to make Aliyah in 2004, and I've been living in Israel now for 18 years, and I've been a member of the press for several years, in addition to working in high tech and other sectors. I'm so impressed with Israel every single day, even in this moment where we're deciding what the future of the democratic nature of the state will look like. And I hear from both sides that some degree of judicial reform is needed. How we get there, there's a bitter debate about it. I feel pretty confident, just speaking to a lot of people as a journalist and as a resident, that some way or another, there may be some compromise and that somehow the temperature will come down. But I see the state of Israel growing and developing faster than any other nation. I'm going to America right now, and I see the differences between the directions that the communities are moving. I see the national bird of Israel is the crane, because buildings are going up everywhere, roads are being built, trains are being built everywhere, and the country is getting wealthier and wealthier and stronger. And I am hopeful at the same time that we in Israel will really embrace our friends and our family, our loved ones in the diaspora, and figure out a way to make the relationship more than about political issues, make it about the love of brothers and sisters to one another. And I'm confident somehow that the Jewish story is not going to end over judicial reform. So I want to thank all of you for participating in the debate. Please do continue participating in the debate. The only way that we're going to have strong relationship is if we talk to each other and if we listen to one another. And at the end, we smile and we embrace each other. That's what we do in Israel, right? We yell about the issue until we're blue in the face. And then we ask about our kids, and then we hug each other and we ask when we're going to do it again. This is the Jewish way. And so I thank you all for participating in this very deep conversation. And I hope that we'll reconnect soon to talk about the next contentious issue.
Alex, thank you. First of all, Alex, thank you for hosting us, and for JNS for giving this platform for Mr. Chikli, MK Meirav Ben-Ari. We really appreciate your taking the time tonight. There's a lot of, as you can see, Jews around the world, not just the United States, are tuning in from Chile tonight and Denmark and other places around the world, from Uruguay and Argentina. Over 230 people registered for this timely webinar because this matters so much to the Jewish world. So I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank the AZM and our partners, President Debbie Isaac, who's here, and also Herb Block, the CEO, for the work that they're doing to stimulate Zionism in America today. And the Zionist movement was and must be built upon active engagement of global Jewry. It is core. Meirav mentioned this earlier, and we must have the support of Jewry around the world. That is how we built this country, and that is how Israel will stay strong. So I'll just end with one closing thought that will hopefully, regardless of the differences of opinions that we have, the camaraderie we saw tonight, even as we debate between Minister Chikli and MK Meirav Ben-Ari, should be a spirit that we take into our dialogue and our discourse into the streets, and we can work together. And even though there will be differences of opinions between our coalition and our opposition, we all remain committed to a strong Israel, a strong Jewish communities around the world, connected to our homeland. And that is the message that we must be bringing into as we go into Pesach soon. And I look forward to us carrying the spirit forward. And may this process end with a peaceful and very positive result, with good cooperative judicial reform that's done in the right way and collectively together. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time. We welcome people to stay involved and connected to Kol Israel. And we look forward to a strong centrist voice to be carrying us forward.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Laila Tov. Thank you.
Laila Tov. Bye.
Bye.
Tov.